Hello, everyone. We are live and recording. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for this first live webinar from the Mandino Leadership Institute for 2016. Didn't intend to wait until March for our first webinar of the year, our first live webinar, but it's been a busy start to the year. A lot of exciting things going on, some amazing breakthroughs that we'll talk about this evening, some incredible experiences with our clients and groups from all across the world over the last few months. So looking forward to spending this time with you. We're going to go ahead and get rolling right into tonight's presentation. Now, when thinking about kind of the theme for tonight, one of the things that we've been talking about quite a bit, and actually a consistent favorite of my co-host this evening and the main speaker and presenter for this evening, and coach, I should say, as far as the format of tonight's presentation, is our CEO, my father, Dave Blanchard, was growing into a mountain. And I'll let Dave share a little bit more of the context of that particular term from the scrolls and what that means to him. But really, that's been a huge focus of ours going into 2016. We've been able to serve a diverse group of people and professionals, from S&P 500 companies to network marketers to small business owners to homemakers and just executives and managers and across the board, you name it. We've been able to work with some incredible people. And really in 2016, it is about the growth of that mountain. It's about finding the well-rounded success of not just greater happiness and peace of mind. That is certainly an asset that everyone would like to attain, but also to have the bank account to back it up, to have the business acumen and the skill set and the fundamentals to be able to create success in the ventures that you're pursuing. A lot of exciting times out there in the economy, exciting times out there as entrepreneurs and as professionals and ambitious, independent, entrepreneurially minded people. And we're just excited to be along for the ride and providing some very powerful principles and practices along the way. Now, without further ado, I'd love to bring my co-host and your coach for this evening online. Dave, are you with us?
I'm here.
Fantastic. Excellent. Now, a couple things. I want to make sure, just a couple housekeeping items. We want to make sure that this is as interactive as possible. This is not a presentation tonight. This is a coaching session. I'm going to be doing my best to advocate for those of you asking questions and asking for Dave to repeat something or to clarify something or anything that comes to mind, to do my best to be able to do that. And if appropriate, depending on your question or inquiry, we may ask that you have an interest in coming on video here with us on this webinar so that you can interact with Dave and I directly in a coaching environment for everyone's benefit, to be able to glean from the counsel and the interactions shared there. Now, a couple other housekeeping items real quick. We will send a few links out that'll be very helpful at the end of this presentation through the chat box. And so we want to make sure that everything is working well there. If everyone can go to the chat function and just shoot me a quick message as to where you're joining us from this evening, would be fantastic, just so I can make sure that we're all good there as far as function. If people can shoot me a couple messages in that area. Excellent. Looks like things are coming through just fine. Perfect. I will be doing my best to make sure that we keep an eye on all that and keep things moving forward. With that, I'm going to stop the screen share and we'll get right into this coaching session, and I'll hand things over to you, Dave.
Thank you. I'm sitting here watching all the places that people are coming to us from this evening. I saw London, saw Sao Paulo, Provo, which is not too far away. What a great opportunity for us to be able to meet with you tonight and to serve you. This is a coaching session. When Paul made this suggestion last week that we do this, I got very, very excited because there are some things that I wanted to share, and then he asked for you to share those things that are keeping you up at night, and I've read every one of the comments. I'm going to do my best to universally address some of those, and as Paul has mentioned, if there's a specific question, please put it in the chat box, and we'll address it live on the call. And if you'd like to interact, as he mentioned, please do that as well. The reason why this topic has been called Grow into a Mountain is born out of Mandino's 10 scrolls. Scroll number 4 is entitled, I Am Nature's Greatest Miracle. I'm nature's greatest miracle. And he starts that by saying, there's a flame that burns within me that's been passed down from generations uncounted. And its heat is a constant irritation to my soul to be better than I am. And I will be. I will fan these flames of dissatisfaction and proclaim my uniqueness to the world. I just love that statement. Now, only a couple of paragraphs later, he says this. I want you to ponder this. I'm on this earth for a purpose. Now, some of us may never have considered this before, but I'm here for a purpose. And what's that purpose? He said to grow into a mountain, not to shrink into a grain of sand. Henceforth, I will apply all of my efforts to become the highest mountain of all. And I emphasize, not in comparison to others, but taking the gifts and talents you've been given and stretching and growing and become all that you can become. And then he says, I will strain my potential till it cries for mercy. Now, we're nature's greatest miracle. We are to fan the flames of dissatisfaction. We are to create more with our lives. We are to build that mountain. However, so many have experienced challenges in primarily the last 8 years, since we started to have that recession develop, and by 2008 it was upon us, and many have not recovered. They're still trying to get back to where they were, or they're just treading water, or it's more difficult to build because people may not have the reserves they had before, the credit available, and so it might be more difficult to sell services and products. Whatever it might be, just want you to ponder this question tonight as we begin this journey. Do I ever want life to be easier? Do I want it to be easier? Do I want it to be less stressful? And then consider the reasons why you might want that. Some mentioned relationship challenges. Some of you mentioned starting up a business challenge. So many different things that can be playing that can just wear us out. One, mourning the death of a father, very tender. Because I've got a mother and father in hospice right now. We're hoping they can be with us as long as possible. I talked to my father today and I said, just keep thinking about spring. Because if we can get him to spring, we'll take him on another ATV ride. A lot of us have got things going on that can be discouraging or overwhelming, frustrating, exhausting. However, we are to grow into a mountain, not to shrink to a grain of sand. I want to go through a few principles with you that can be life-changing if we will practice mastering them. Some of you are familiar with my book, Today I Begin a New Life. On page 65, there's a section called The Chicago Dream. When I read all of those things that you would like me to talk about tonight, the thought that came to my mind was this: how have you been uniquely prepared to serve? How have you been uniquely prepared to serve? In the Chicago Dream, this is a dream I had 10 years ago. I'm dragging this sack over my shoulder. It's so big, it's dragging on the ground behind me. It's weighing 200 or 300 pounds. It's just exhausting to drag it. And I'm approaching someone, and I want to connect with them. And this really tender voice says, let go of the sack. I wish I could see your faces tonight, but could you just do this with me? Just feel what it would be like to have all those burdens lifted from you. You have to excuse my cold tonight. Just got back from a couples retreat, and we snowmobiled all night on Friday night and got up on top of the tallest peak, looked down over the valley, and I caught a little bit of a cold going through that process. But this voice said to me, let go of the sack, and I just felt this tremendous sense of relief. And then it said, turn around and face the sack. I want to have each one of you tonight reflect on the thoughts you had or the actual statements you said to us. Turn around and face that sack. There's a reason why we drag it behind us. We know what's in that sack. It's too painful to look at. But I want you to turn around and face the sack. Then that voice said to me, empty the sack. I didn't want to empty the sack. I knew what was in there. And I emptied. And there was a stack of silver orbs with spikes. I shared this with a group earlier today. Here's mine. I had a client send this to me. And I still remember opening up the package and taking off the lid and going, whoa, it's way too familiar. Spikes and a silver ball. That was what was in the dream. And I was asked to pick up the most painful of all those spiky balls. I knew exactly which one it was. I'd spent over 50 years trying to hide from it, wanting to be someone else, somewhere else, doing something different. I did not want that as part of my life. But I'm holding this in my hands, just like this. Can you see it okay? There we go. And then that tender voice said to me, has anyone else suffered from a similar wound? Ponder that with me. Considering what you're holding in your hand. It didn't matter what I was holding. What's in yours? What's the most painful of all those silver orbs? Is anyone else suffering from a similar wound? I had to say, yes. Yes, they are. Then engrave this on your heart. I'm thinking, that's going to hurt. But it slid right into my heart. And when it did, I felt a new life. And I picked up the next. Anyone else suffering from a similar wound? Yes. Engrave this on your heart. Very symbolic. To engrave something on your heart is the pure definition of the word character. That's where our character comes from. And I heard those words when we finished. After I had finished, the voice said to me, and I want to say this to each one of you, to Pat, to Harold, to Jill, to Helen, to Tom, all of you out there tonight. Your character has been forged in the furnace of adversity. You know what pain feels like. You can't take it back. But you can choose to use it as a rich resource to better understand what someone else is suffering. And as I was promised, I'll promise you, if you'll choose to use it this way, so that you hear things other people may not hear, see things that other people may not see, ask questions that others may not ask because they haven't had your experience. But the person is, if you'll use it that way, there'll finally be purpose in the suffering. And I could tell from your comments that some of you are suffering significantly. But there'll finally be purpose in that suffering because it will have prepared you for that moment to lift the burden from another. There'll finally be joy in your journey. There's nothing more joyful than connecting with a human being and leaving them feeling understood. And the last promise, there'll be much needed healing in your soul. I was then told to turn around and face that person that was approaching me, and I turned around, and for the first time I noticed that he too was dragging a sack. And I knew what was in it, and I knew the questions to ask, because my sack was in my heart. So I ask you before we begin some principles. How have you been uniquely prepared to serve? I may or may not give you an answer to solving a problem, but I may share with you how to better use it so that it can be a joyful part of your life and not a burden. So if you have the opportunity, over the next 24 hours, make a list of all those things in your sack. Many of you have been so beautifully and uniquely prepared. So one other dream I want to tell you about, it's not very old. I had a dream that I saw a man standing on the edge of a cliff ready to jump off. And I felt impressed to walk out to the edge of the cliff and talk with him. And I stepped into his world, asked him a question or two. And as I did, you could see him relaxing a little bit. And he finally turned and eventually took me by the arm, and we walked away from the edge of the cliff. And I said, what was that all about? And the impression I got was this: knowing a lot about a lot of people. We've completed 60,000 assessments where we've measured how people are thinking. And we know the risks associated with those thoughts and the challenges that can drive some of those thoughts. I've debriefed over 6,000 of them one-on-one just by myself. I think this prompts the feeling. The time is not too far off when people are going to be tested beyond their normal capacity to handle the test. And there's going to be a lot of people standing on the edge of the cliff. And the only person who'll have credibility to walk out there and to talk them off that ledge will be somebody who has stood there themselves. Ponder that for a moment. How am I being uniquely prepared right now to serve today and even perhaps even more effectively in the future? If we can grasp that perspective of the trials that we're going through, we'll be better servant leaders in everything we're doing. Because the greatest gift we can give a person, the single greatest gift, is to step into their world and listen. Create a safe place by asking empathetic questions. All of a sudden, their need for a wall of resistance comes down. And behind that wall is a 40% reserve of energy and productive cooperation that will flood out to you by showing up in that space in service to them. Greatest gift we give a human being is feeling understood. It's not our advice. It's not our wisdom. It's the fact that we cared enough to listen and understand where they are. This is the most important thing that we can do. And you've been so uniquely prepared to do it. Many of you had questions about business. We study the formal science of axiological mathematics. It's a formal science out of the University of Tennessee. Using this, which employs Cantor's transfinite calculus, we measure with absolute precision how a person thinks. And we know those thoughts impact every facet of their life. How we feel, how we act, the results we create, all driven by those thought processes. And quite often, even our personalities. So we want to be very careful to listen to these thought processes, to be able to help someone. And what we know from axiological mathematics, that the most significant mathematical measurement is honoring a human being, valuing a human being for their uniqueness and pricelessness. When we approach a business just to make money or to embrace a system, and we don't have as the number one objective blessing the lives of people, absolute mathematics tells us that we are out of congruence with creation. Growing into that mountain, we're out of congruence. Now, interestingly, But of all those people we've assessed, the vast majority, almost 90%, have an incredible capacity to be empathetic, to step into a person's world. They also have a corresponding challenge of an internal dialogue that's so self-destructive. They talk themselves out of their own intuition. Well, they get the intuitive thought, but the conversation can be about my worthiness about getting it, my ability to receive it, my character, my contribution, mistakes I may have made in the past. And as a result, we rob ourselves and everyone around us of our greatest gifts. You're going to want to learn how to step into someone's world. Honor the person. Bring down the walls of resistance. People know when you just want to sell them something. They know. You know when you cross that line and feel uncomfortable. We first and foremost want to honor people. The next, and I had such a wonderful conversation this afternoon, I noticed that some of you are with us tonight. What a fun thing to do to review it so quickly. The second, out of the first three elements in this mathematics, the second is the most dangerous, but extremely important. It is the most misunderstood principle, I believe, in all of self-improvement. I'm going to do my best tonight to give you some very specific guidelines. Because if you'll listen carefully, take copious notes. We're recording this so that you can listen to it after. We want you to be able to employ this principle correctly, because when you do, it will ignite your passion. And the passion will drive your focus and discipline and effort and action. You'll do things, whatever's required to create your dreams in tangible reality. You work without counting the cost or tracking the time. It is nearly magical when it is employed correctly. And it is one of the greatest sources of pain and internal self-deprecating dialogue when it's not. So I'm going to walk through it very carefully tonight, because I sense that when we understand this one and we start to master it, that many of the concerns I heard about as I read those statements, I could feel them, will begin to dissipate and in time be overcome. So here are some of the underlying foundational principles. Number one, what is our secret desire and real intention? Why do we want to be successful? Why do we want to build that business? Why do we want to have that relationship? Why do we want to do the work? Sadly, understandably, but sadly, the vast majority of the population wants life to be easier. They want it to be less stressful, less painful. When Og says, I'm on this earth for a purpose, and that purpose is to grow into a mountain, not to shrink to a grain of sand. Can you feel the stretching and the growing, being uncomfortable, and the mess that sometimes creates? Can you feel the energy of stretching? You see, sometimes we want to create our dreams because we think it's going to create an easier life, and here's our comfort zone. And we want to create it without going outside our comfort zone. We don't want it to be painful. We just want life to be different. So, bottom line, and with a smile on my face, if we're looking for a life that's less stressful and less painful, we are on the wrong planet. We're just on the wrong planet. That's not part of this planet. This planet, as Og said, we are to stretch and grow and become. And that can be painful. But it's also extremely joyful. Because when we do stretch, and that which used to be frightening is now common and comfortable. And then we stretch a little bit more pain, and we continue to grow. We get to experience greater and greater things. Og said in scroll number 10, I'll seek guidance. He said, I'm not on this earth to seek gold or garments or even opportunities equal to my ability. He said, I'm here to acquire ability equal to my opportunity. What does that mean? In our current comfort zone, the opportunities that will create the success we desire may in fact be out here. They are in fact out here. And if we don't stretch and gain that ability, we'll never see the opportunity. It won't be ours to have. But every time we grow, we see more and more. The way we say it is, we acquire ever-increasing levels of ability to handle ever-increasing levels of responsibility with ever-increasing levels of ease. So we acquire ability to handle more responsibility with greater levels of ease. That allows us to see greater levels of opportunity, and we get to create our dreams. So it's out here. It's understandable that some of the circumstances you shared are crushing, but you're being prepared for something exceptional. And that preparation can assist you in growing by serving effectively. So I'm going to invite everybody tonight to write down these 5 phrases. Tonight, I'm going to make a choice. Choice number 1. I'm going to engage in life. I may have been trying to hide from it, or have been beat up by the baseball bat of life, but I'm going to engage in life. I'm going to choose to live. Number 1. Number 2, I'm going to embrace principles, starting with the ones I'm sharing tonight. Number 3, I'm going to connect and serve. I'm going to make it a priority. I may be introverted. I might be shy. I might feel like I don't have the ability, but you've had the experience engraved on your heart that would allow you maybe to not have all the wisdom of the ages, but you will have the questions to ask to help someone feel understood. And you can give the greatest gift. The greatest gift. So let's make that choice to connect and serve. Number 4, create value everywhere you go. Don't just be there. Do something to make it better. Not only the situation, but the people. Spend your life creating value. Number 5, contribute. If you go to a church, pay a tithe. If you belong to a community, volunteer for a local event. Help feed the poor. Do something. Contribute. Make it matter that you're on this planet. Leave a footprint. Can you feel the difference between, oh, I'm just so tired, I just want it to be easier and less stressful, versus I'm going to engage in life. I'm going to embrace principles. I'm going to connect and serve. I'm going to create value, and I'm going to contribute. Can you feel the difference in those 2 energies? Because the first is incongruent with creating your dreams, your desires, the things you want to overcome. The second is the road. You want to be on that road. So that's number 1. Make the decision to live, to become involved, and stop hiding. I'm not saying that as an indictment to anyone, please. No judgment. Again, a lot of you have reasons for it. Some of you have been deeply wounded. I know when I picked up my spiky balls and reflected on some of those wounds, deep cuts, but they've turned out to be some of my greatest blessings. Wow, get emotional. Just got back from that couples retreat. Not only do we go snowmobiling and the ladies have an esthetician and we have a great time, I get to meet with them privately. Been married for 41 years to the sweetest person on the planet. 7 children, 27 grandchildren. Those experiences, those painful ones, allow me to ask questions I would have never thought of otherwise. And they make all the difference. To watch someone come alive, to choose life, so important. So feel the 2 differences. Make the decision tonight. I'm going to live. I'm going to live. No matter how old I am. Doesn't matter. Start today. Today I begin a new life. Today I shed my old skin, which had too long suffered the bruises of failure and the wounds of mediocrity. Today I am born anew. And that's what it means to choose to engage, embrace, connect, serve, create value, contribute. That's choosing to be born today. And my birthplace is a vineyard where there is fruit for all. There's abundance. Now to assist us. Remember we had honoring people, their uniqueness, their pricelessness, caring enough about to step into their world. Now I'm going to give you the second piece. But it won't make any sense unless you make the decision to engage in life. If you make that decision, the second step is identifying something that you intrinsically value. Something. First is intrinsically valuing people. Now it's intrinsically valuing something. I want to tell you what that means, and I want to tell you clearly what it does not mean. This is a very slippery slope. You would have not heard me teaching this publicly 4 months ago. But it's become so apparent that these distinctions need to be made so that we can have this thing we value intrinsically, because it'll ignite your passion. It'll drive your focus and discipline, effort, and action. It doesn't matter how much it costs. Just write that down. That thing that I'm going to value intrinsically, it doesn't matter what it costs. It's what it does to my soul. It does to my soul. I'll give you the 4 qualifications. Qualification number 1. That thing inspires me. Love the word. It means to breathe life into you. It inspires me. Lights me up. Number 2, it encourages me. E-N, cour, heart, blood. It adds to my courage, to my heart, to stretch and grow, to be uncomfortable, to have it be messy at times, to pay that price, which most people won't pay. They just won't pay it. They want to stay in their comfort zone, and they just want their circumstances to change. James Allen said it this way: let a man radically alter his thoughts, and he'll be astonished at the rapid transformation it will make in the material conditions of his life. You want circumstances to change? Whew. Then it's time to get encouraged. And that thing that you value intrinsically, that's its mission, is to encourage you to do the stretching and growing and paying the price. Because you become a better person, you become better at listening to people, caring about people. You actually are supporting the first initiative, loving people, by you becoming a better person. So that's number 2. 1 is inspire, 2 is encourage. Number 3, it makes you want to be abundant. Remember, my birthplace is a vineyard where there's fruit for all. My birthplace is a vineyard. There's fruit for all. I have more than enough fruit. You want this thing to inspire you and encourage you to stretch and grow, and then you'll want to share it. You want to share it, to bless the lives of others, because your birthplace is a vineyard. Number 4, and this is a key. 97% of all entrepreneurs resist structure. It's just part of their makeup. A large percentage resist authority, and 97% are constantly obsessively thinking about new and better ways to do things. If I were to try to impose structure on you, hair would raise up on the back of your neck. You'd be naturally resistant, even if it's in your best interest. It's just a natural gut reaction from an entrepreneur. But the way you embrace structure is to have that thing that intrinsically valued is intrinsically valued by you, that you will do whatever is necessary to create, including a willingness to embrace the structure. That's the third element. But it happens naturally. I'm loving the people. I have something I want to create that intrinsically lights me up. And I'm willing to embrace the structure to create it. Now, this is a dangerous, slippery slope because we're not talking about creating an idol in our life. We're not talking about becoming attached to our things. If you've read my book, you know I became attached to my things before we lost millions and spent 10 years paying back $1 million in debt. I was my Rolex watch. I was my Mercedes. I was my Ferrari. I was all those things. That's not what we're talking about. Because it's not the price. It's not whether it makes us feel better about ourselves. It's not something that is there for our ego satisfaction. That's one thing it's absolutely not. Another thing that it is not is something that drives us into fantasy. Now, this is a slippery slope because vivid visualization is a critical part of creation. We'll want to vividly visualize that thing that we're going to intrinsically value. Visualization is critical. But what is the visualization for? Do we actually believe that we can manifest tangible reality with vivid visualization alone? There are those who would want you to believe that, and it is an absolute lie. I've watched so many lives where they've fantasized and life turns out differently and they hate their life, and as a result, they hate themselves. I can almost touch it. I can almost taste it. Why can't I have it? What's wrong with me? Does God not love me? It's the number one cause of self-esteem challenges. Unmet, unrealistic expectation. I want to be very, very careful that the purpose of vivid visualization is to get clarity about what we're about to create. To get clarity. Wow. If I have you wired to a functional MRI and you're going into vivid visualization to get clarity on what you're going to create, we would see part of your brain ignite that's normally dormant in a human being. Whew. Passion's ignited. That inspiration, that encouragement, that wanting to share, that willingness to embrace structure, it lights it up. So you want to vividly visualize. Fantasy is a very specific definition. I'll do my best to describe it. Here I am in the now. I've gone into the future to vividly visualize what it is I'm going to create. And then I cross a line. I then go beyond the dream and begin to play out vivid scenarios about what it's going to be like after it's created. You see, I'm escaping the process of creation. I just want it manifest. That's why it's so popular to sell it that way. Just vividly visualize with enough intention, the universe will manifest it. Just ask the universe, it's stupid. Oh my goodness, it's not stupid at all. And there is not a power for goodness in this universe that will ever rob you of the opportunity to stretch and grow and become all you're meant to be, because you're to grow into a mountain, not to shrink to a grain of sand. And if it were just given to you, it would destroy you. You would be a grain of sand. It would crush you. We don't want to be in that space. We want to be able to go into the future and come back and focus on the millimeters of creation, driven by being inspired by creating that, encouraged by creating that, wanting that abundance, wanting to embrace the structure, to create whatever it takes. But if we go into fantasy, what we know is that you will have your sympathetic system filled with norepinephrine, a very powerful euphoric drug. And the instant life shows up differently, you get the antithesis of that, a cortisol surge, released in the body to speed up metabolism and heal wounds. Your fight or flight center, your amygdala will be hijacked. It'll send out an army to shut down all the energy-rich parts of your brain, your empathy, practical judgment, common sense. You'll be rendered emotionally paralyzed. Perhaps you've been here. This is when we're suffering from confusion and fear and questioning our ability. We're just having an amygdala hijack. We just went into the future and played with what it was going to be like after, and we're being spanked. That's what we're being, is spanked. And it's devastating. It's crushing. We don't want to go into fantasy. Third, I've mentioned ego, satisfaction. 2, fantasy. And 3 is to hide, which is part of that wanting life to be easy. I want to earn enough money to buy a tropical island so I get away from all these annoying people. However, I have to pretend like I care about them until that happens. What happens if I actually do care about them? Now I get duplicity, double-mindedness. On one hand, I care about the people, but if I earn money doing that, what I want to do with it's incongruent with loving the people. I want to escape and avoid and hide and have ego satisfaction. At the heart of some of the challenges of the people who shared with me in preparation for tonight, I want you to explore what I just shared with you. This is being recorded, so you can go listen to it again and again. You want to explore, what is my secret desire and real intention? Do I ever want life to be easier and just less stressful? When I vividly visualize, do I ever go past the dream and start playing out what it's like? In the next 24 hours, how often am I overwhelmed and discouraged and frustrated and even depressed? Now you have one of the greatest secrets of creation. You are supposed to want more. You're supposed to fan these flames of dissatisfaction and proclaim your uniqueness to the world. You are supposed to grow into a mountain and not to shrink to a grain of sand. But why? So that you can more effectively love and serve people. So that you can be inspired and encouraged and abundant and willing to embrace structure. So when you go back after and you listen to this again, we have an opportunity to do some work together. Let's get really clear when we're crossing that line. Because if we're going to find our why, let us find one that we intrinsically value so that we can meet that requirement. Because if we don't, we're going to spend our life in high emotional highs and low emotional lows. And that roller coaster will wear you out. Matter of fact, the chronic release of cortisol has been attributed to 95% of the disease in geriatric patients. 95% of the disease caused by chronic releases of cortisol, and that cortisol wearing out the cells of the body and challenging the immune system, causing exacerbation of hypertension and diabetes. It just wears out the body. We do not want to be in that space. We don't want to be catastrophizing and worrying. Okay,
I'm going to jump out right here. Waiting for my opportunity. I want to make sure you got a chance to lay out the whole formula of what you want to look for that thing, what you want to avoid with that thing. We've got a lot of buzz going on. I want to make sure we get a chance to address a lot of questions coming directly to us, some of them to the whole group. There are a couple questions that came in early. I want to make sure that those people know we're not going to disregard those. I just feel they're great kind of capstone questions to hit right at the end. But in particular to this one, in terms of that why, as a lot of people would call it, or what we're referring to tonight as that thing. And I know kind of as a disclaimer, as a caveat, that Dave, you and I and many of our coaches will spend a lot of time with our clients on defining and searching and clarifying and utilizing this thing. So there's only so much that we can create on a group webinar like this. But for so many people out there saying, how do you find it? How do you find that thing? Because as some people have commented, I already have my health and my friends and my family, and yet that's not driving me to become a mountain. We have other people saying, I want the structure. Bring it on. Give me the structure if I could just find it. What is your response to kind of those perspectives and the person just going, yeah, stuff's all right, but what is that thing for me and how do I find it?
And we say stuff. We want to go into the mathematics for a moment. It's called an extrinsic concept. And an extrinsic concept is anything that's measurable, tangible, comparable, contrastable. It could be the business itself that you're in, that you intrinsically value your business because of it just inspires you and encourages you, and you're willing to share it, and you embrace the structure. For another person, it might be something totally different. I'm going to be really personal with all of you for a moment. I shared this earlier today with the group. I wear a ring right here. You see it? That's a cubic zirconia. Used to have a diamond in the ring. The diamond from this went into Ramona's when she gave me her ring to sell so we could buy a house in the middle of that financial crisis. Next Christmas, poorer than church mice, she spends $75 and gets a cubic zirconium to put in this ring. I'll never put a diamond in this ring. This is a thing. It's worth maybe $50 in the open market, but to me it's priceless. Because all I need to do is touch. And it makes me want to share what I learned during those 10 years. All those principles, promising that if I could be shown how to create success, I'd spend the rest of my life teaching other people. This is my reminder of that commitment and what was learned. This last weekend, we were at the cabin with 5 couples taking on their lives. In the book, I talk about the miracle in which that cabin came into our lives. It's absolute miraculous. Now, the sources of revenue were there. They had been created, been a dream for a long time. But the desire to share and to embrace the structure, to create it, maintain it, use it. We've had 260 people, 130 couples come for formal couples retreats. It's a little bit more valuable than this ring, but it has nothing to do with how much it costs or what it takes to maintain it. It's what it does to me and how we use it to change the lives of other people. That's an extrinsic thing valued intrinsically. So when you're thinking about something, just go down the checklist. Does this inspire me? Well, sort of. Probably not it. Does it encourage me to stretch and grow? Or am I still hiding behind my fears? Probably not it. Do I want to share it and bless the lives of other people, or do I just want to hide? If I want to hide, probably not it. Am I embracing structure? And we go back to the foundational principle I started with. And it could be the most painful and most purposeful decision you'll make. It's choosing to live. You may have wanted things. You may have wanted stuff, but not intrinsically, for other reasons. And if we don't want it intrinsically, it's not going to drive the behavior that creates it. Now, I could give you some other examples, but you might explore some of the things you have right now. I'll give you my last personal piece. I hesitate to, but I will. Last June, Ramona and I decided to downsize our house. We don't need this much space. And so we put it on the market. And I immediately felt empty. And my first reaction was, wow, did I become my stuff again? Because last time I was my Rolex watch, I was my car. And if I become my house, is this my identity? And so I struggled with it. I thought, I just need to overcome this. I just need to sell it, and we downsize, and I can be me, right? And Paul knows I have 6 or 7 coaching sessions a day. This is my 7th today. What an exhilarating thing to do. Love to serve the people. The joy that that brings. But in terms of something that was lighting up my personal soul, something was missing. Then one day I woke up and said, you know, this house inspires me. This house encourages me. I want to share it. I embrace all kinds of structure. I love the quality. We had an old world craftsman do the woodwork. Oh my goodness, every joint is perfect, just filled with beautiful alder. Incredible. Well, some other people, that may not do anything to them. And I want to emphasize this point. It's not you embracing my thing that I intrinsically value. It's you finding your own. But you may find it in some of the things you already have and haven't truly honored. You may find it in some natural things that you do anyway. I'll give you one more. 2 weeks ago, I finished a recovery rescue project of a Frederick Remington monumental statue of the Blockbuster. It's about 5 feet tall. It's a beautiful bronze statue. When I got it, and I paid very little for it, it had been in somebody's yard for 20 years and in somebody's garage for 10. It was a disaster. I could see the beauty in the statue. I rescued it. But I spent hours. There's no economic value applied to these hours. Just lovingly, with a torch and with wax, slowly taking away all of those calcium deposits and slowly working down to the bottom. Several weeks working on it. And I was having this incredible experience of what it's like, if you don't mind me using this phrase, you may not believe in God, I do, of how he uses his torch sometimes to take away some of my calcium deposits. And I was having this incredible experience watching this bronze pop out from behind the statue. I was dealing with something I was intrinsically valuing. I have no intention of selling it. It's worth 10 times what I paid for it. It's not that at all. It doesn't even come into my consideration. I ended up putting it in the foyer of our home. It was going to go to the cabinets in the foyer of our home. I walked by it, and every time I just stopped and admire the magnificence of this statue. It was the very first statue that Remington did. It's most popular. Now it's a reproduction. If it weren't, it'd be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. But it's a beautiful piece, and it reminds me of what can be done when someone pays attention to the detail and is willing to be patient with something. Most people would have just thrown it away. I'm going to enjoy it for the rest of my life. That's the thing you value intrinsically. Just to give you an example. It doesn't have to be earth-shattering. It just needs to meet the 4 qualifications. Paul, I can't take it much deeper than that because for each person, it's totally different. But look where you go naturally. Where do you spend your time? What do you find joy in? And redefine it and see it for what it might be. And then dive into it, intrinsically valuing that thing and see what you can create. It doesn't always have to be monetary. It's not about always building a business and generating revenue. It doesn't have to be that. It just needs to inspire you and encourage you and create that abundant feeling and have you willingly embrace structure. The more you do it, the more you'll find.
Dave, I want to circle back with one thing real quick because it was part of the discovery process for us as we really dove head on into E to the I, to an intrinsic thing that is intrinsically valued with that extrinsic stuff. Because I can see just coming through from some of the chats and other things that there's a similar conflict to what we've faced for a long time in this organization, and that is that I to the I is the most important.
That's an intrinsic concept, a person being valued intrinsically. Yes.
Exactly. And that's beyond the stuff. And that's beyond those are the most important things in your life. Your family is an intrinsic value. As many people have chatted in, your belief in God and Jesus is an intrinsic value. All those things are so powerful. And yet, and we stayed there. Our spotlight was so fixed on eye to the eye that everything else became dark around it, because that is the most important.
Absolutely.
However, and I think what we're trying to, what we are breaking into is the fact that mathematically right below eye to the eye is E to the I. And some people even chat in, well, it's not about the things. It's not about the stuff. Several people coming through it. And we used to feel the same way. And that's not necessarily true, as we've started to realize that it is about the stuff. It is about the things, as long as we intrinsically value them. I remember a client of mine that I was coaching personally a few months ago. I'll never forget, because she was I'm not really a stuff kind of person. I don't really get excited about having things, and she makes several $100,000 a year. She doesn't want for money or anything. And so finding her E to the I, it was a battle, and it was a process that we went through together, and it didn't happen overnight. Then all of a sudden, one day it hit her, and it was travel. Travel was her E to the I. And travel had never mattered to her before, but as she started to understand the intrinsic values, the mathematics of finding her thing, suddenly travel became so much more than just travel, than just the extrinsic item. There may be some people on this call who have been taught that to want a really fancy car is a bad thing, and that you should want more important goals out of life. But if having a fancy car, as I know it does for you and I, makes you feel inspired to be as complete and attention to detailed and just as elite as you can be to serve, as something like that that works for us. That's not true for everyone. But with that, it also shouldn't mean that you should shun things and stuff with the concern that will detract from eye to the eye, because that's what we did for years. It was just easier to take E to the I out of the equation, because people are so easily drawn into becoming their things and being ego-driven and all of that. And we've missed what you have been unlocking in incredible levels, and we've been able as coaches to disperse as well, is the power of that second measurement, of not dismissing it, but being able to embrace it properly.
I'm going to take it deeper at great risk, because many people who may be reluctant to find that thing they intrinsically value may feel that it is antithetical to their spiritual beliefs, that they're violating a principle, a godly principle, that somehow being poor is more righteous. Today, they announced that Mother Teresa is being sainted. I don't know there's very many people who don't know Mother Teresa's name. One of the most giving, loving people on the planet ever. However, she was a tenacious fundraiser. She raised $110 million during her lifetime, and here's the truth. If she didn't have that in its proper perspective, we would not know who she is, because she would not have been able to do what she did. That's the truth. Number two, and this is a key piece as well. I believe, this is my belief, and I don't want to offend anybody, but I think there's going to come a time when we're going to have an accounting for what we did with our gifts and talents. There's going to be an accounting. And I think it's going to be pretty hard to say, well, but I didn't want to stretch and grow, and I didn't want to take too much. I don't want to be worldly. And I think the answer was, but I wanted you to take the gifts I gave you and create the most you could in the service of others. Well done. my good and faithful servant. Some of you will recognize those words. Well done. You do not want to bury your gifts and talents for lots of reasons. One, people deserve to have you fully present, fully engaged, connecting, serving, and creating. That means you're alive and passionate and driven. So if you do it just for that reason. Two, you'll have a very fulfilled life. You'll never have a regret. You're not building instead of, you're building so you can do better. Remember, it's to become a better person. That means to be a better father, a better husband. And to say, I don't want to stretch and grow, is to say, I don't want to be a better husband. I don't want to be a better father. I don't want to be a better mother. I don't want to be a better wife. That's what we're saying. I'm going to accept where I am. This is as good as I want to be. Wow. Who do we rob? Ourselves and everyone else. This isn't about the stuff. It's not about its price. It's about being in creation, taking our gifts and tools and creating the most we can in every facet of our life, in our relationships, in our business, everywhere, creating value everywhere we go. Being a better person. That's what that thing does for us. It inspires us and encourages us, helps us become more abundant in the service of others. It turns us into Mother Teresa's, not at the expense of the people, but as one of the elements in becoming better at serving people. Wow, I hope that didn't offend a soul. Not meant to. But imagine, this is your last day. And you're looking back. What's going to be more joyful? I had the courage to stretch and grow. I went through the pain, the discomfort. I created, and I used what I created to bless the lives of other people. I was abundant in everything that I did. I have no regrets. I leave this experience full. That's what we're talking about.
Well, Dave, we could certainly go on forever. I want to run through a couple things that I know some people have been looking forward to learning a little bit more about, and then I'll turn things back over to you for just a quick close for this evening. Okay. So many great comments, great questions coming in. I'm just licking my chops, so to speak, to dive into so many of these things, but we'll
do this again.
Yeah, challenging forum with as many people as we have on here, and the very limited bandwidth we have in terms of the scope. If anything, it definitely lends itself to having struck some chords and hit some nerves with some people in a good way, I believe, and the impact that having a coach can have in that area. We hope that we provided an introduction to the value and experience of the value that we can provide in that arena. I want to run through a couple of things just really quick. This is not the objective of the webinar, but certainly we would be doing you a disservice to not cover it really quick for your benefit. So let me pull this up again really quick just so that everyone is aware. So first of all, in terms of where you can go from here, we've got personal coaching. Let me get this chat box out of the way, pardon me. There we go. So we've got personal coaching, which is targeted and customized. It is based on your business needs, your goals, your objectives, personally and professionally. We start with an assessment deep dive of your particular thought processes, what you're looking to accomplish, what qualifies your ROI, monetarily and personally, spiritually, physically, whatever the case is. That's what we lay out in a personal coaching session. It comes with a 200+ page practicum that you get to keep for life. This is, without being offensive, this is our intentional creation Bible, if you will, so that you can always recall quickly and study carefully the rest of your life, the principles that will help you grow into that mountain. You get lifetime access to our AUG Vault, which is our signature collection of programs and weekly power session calls. And you can choose to engage in a 3-month or a 6-month engagement, and you can do that for as little as $216 a month. Now, as a precursor to the other two things I'm going to share tonight, and as to what I just shared, as I forgot to say is a huge goal of our board and our leadership team here at the Mandino Leadership Institute for 2016 was to lower the barriers of entry as much as possible for people to be able to access what we have available. We've worked with the titans in business down to the humblest of small business owners and direct sales professionals and whatever the case may be, stay-at-home moms to newlyweds, you name it. And we still long for the opportunity to make this as accessible as possible while still being able to maintain the business aspect of this. And we've made some very significant engagements, partnerships, and arrangements to be able to make this happen. And that's one of the reasons for sharing this right now. Now, if personal coaching is not a reality for you or may not be the chord struck for you, we provide group coaching. We max things out at 20 participants. We've got well over 100 people on here tonight. And so you can see the inherent challenges of that. We would do group coaching with a maximum of 20 so we can see all of us on the screen at the same time, interact much more personally, be able to customize and make sure all the questions that get asked get addressed, that we can tie it as customized as possible and targeted to you. Same practicum, you get a 2-year access to the Og Vault and Power Session calls included in that. It's a 12-week engagement where we dive through and actually get to spend more than just an hour in an evening, but a few weeks on E to the I, a few weeks on connecting with people and intrinsic validation, a few weeks on all these things to really drive them home, and then weekly group power session calls that you get in perpetuity to make sure that those principles keep you grounded and that you continue that forward moving trajectory. And you can get into group coaching for as low as $99 a month. Couples retreats. Dave just returned from one. If you're in a committed companionship, there is few words that can describe this all-inclusive experience for 4 days at Dave's retreat. We're talking adventure, coaching, pampering, friends for life. If you would consider it at all, whether there's resistance on any part of either spouse and you'd like to get in touch with Dave to talk about this more in depth of a retreat, or even talk to someone that's been to one, I would highly recommend it, because even the people who were excited still had no idea what they were in for with an amazing experience. You get your own private master suite. You're not sharing bunk beds or anything like that or other accommodations. And it is certainly a mi casa, su casa kind of experience. There's nothing that brings my mother and father more joy than seeing people come to that amazing retreat, that cabin, and just make themselves at home, whether it's with the fun things to do there, ping pong, air hockey, entertainment centers, the esthetician and masseuse that are on hand, the snowmobiling, all of that, or the very private, tender coaching moments that are between you and your spouse and Dave and Ramona. And you also, with that, get lifetime access to the Og Vault and Power Sessions. You can get that for as low as $274 a month. So here's how it works. And I'm going to send this link out to everybody here in just a moment through the chat so that you can do that. All this is an opportunity for you to go and request a consultation. Fill this form out, indicate where your areas of interest may be, if any at all, and there are a few more on that we're not addressing tonight, such as becoming a certified and licensed Og Mandino coach, if that interests you, and a number of other things. Feel free to go to this page, and I'll send the email or the link out via chat here in just a second. And no obligation, where we can get some one-on-one time, complimentary, to explore possibilities with you and find out if any of these options could be the ones that you are ready to engage in, to be able to grow into a mountain in 2016, to have your potential crying for mercy, so that we can provide a platform far more intimate, far more impactful than the limitations we have in a group webinar setting like this. So with that, let me go ahead and get this link sent out. And while I'm doing that, Dave, if you wouldn't mind closing us out for this evening, that would be great.
I just saw something that warmed my heart come through the chat room. Lisa, who was at our couples retreat in February, just was saying to everybody how exciting that was. And thank you, Lisa, for your endorsement of that event. That is truly something Ramona and I love to do. If there's any possibility that you have need for what we do, please fill out the form. Paul will call you. There's no pressure. We're not in the business of closing people. We're in the business of solving problems. and helping you get the material that you need. So just let us serve you. It could be just a consultation for a few minutes to help kick you off and go in the right direction. We'll be happy to do that. So just take a few moments and go to the link and fill it out, and let us be of service to you. And thanks for being here tonight. It is so thrilling to be able to teach this concept we refer to as E to the I, extrinsic valued intrinsically. Finding this thing, and you can feel from the chat tonight that this is something that isn't really well understood. And it's part of the reason why we haven't had the passion that's required to drive the action to actually create the dreams. So let us study this a little bit, get to know this, because could this be the answer that you've been looking for, that perhaps you've talked yourself out of or been afraid to even consider or felt guilty about thinking about? I like to submit to you that people first, joy. Something we value intrinsically, passion. S to the I, the structure we embrace, sense of accomplishment. A wonderful trifecta in the creation of your dreams. So we look forward to being of service to you and actually creating them, not just warm and fuzzy blanket, but actually paying the price so that you can live them while you're here on this planet. Thanks for being with us tonight. And thank you, Paul, for your vision of doing this event. We'll do more of these. So thank you.
Pleasure to be with everybody tonight. Everybody take care. Have a great night. And look forward to continuing to interact via email and other videos and any other ways that we can serve our friends and our Mandino family. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Good night.